Okay, I am sitting here with Miss Sara Ecker, one of my favorite people, and she just finished talking about stuttering. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Great. How are you, Kelly?
I am lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much, first of all, for sitting down and doing this today because, well, first of all, because I think you're great. And second of all, stuttering is, I think for so many clinicians, it is this big, I don't even know, feared kind of like, oh my gosh, I hope I don't get a kid who stutters on my caseload because I don't know what to do. And then you get one and you fumble around. And so I think anything that breaks stuttering therapy down really nicely, like you just did, can only be a help to the profession.
Yeah, I hope so. I think I'm one of the rare people. I love working with stutterers or I like learning about stuttering. And I feel like I don't have fear. I don't have all the answers. Certainly not. I definitely have found out like, oh my gosh, I guess I didn't quite do that right, or I should have done something different. But it doesn't really matter. Like, I think it really is a really big piece for the students who stutter to have someone to talk to and check in and talk about their stutter, because it is such an emotional thing.
It is. And I think inadvertently, of course, no speech path wants to do this on purpose, but inadvertently with our own fear and uneasiness with it, we can kind of magnify the problem. Like, we should be the person who they are okay to talk to about it and who they know is safe. And I think we can sometimes just by our own body language sort of project a little bit of tension about it. And so, just taking a breath and chilling out, I think is a
Totally
good idea.
And one of the things, they actually talked about that in the workshop that I attended, and it was really interesting. They really talked about it's really important to fake your confidence. They're like, it really doesn't matter if this is the first stutter you have ever seen, just fake it. They say
that's my favorite. Fake it till you make it. That's exactly like my motto.
Right. That's right. And I think there was some number that they prescribed, but it was something like 70%. 70% of a student's or a client's confidence comes from how confident the therapist feels within themselves.
Whoa, that's
so it's
crazy.
A really big piece. So even though you don't feel confident, just say like, I am confident I can help this person. There is something I can provide. And that's a big piece for them.
Yeah, just do a little positive self-talk right before they come in.
That's right.
I feel good. I feel great. I feel wonderful.
I can do this. I can help this person.
Yes. Yeah. And I think one that I went to a workshop several years ago by Scott Yaros. I'm not quite sure how you say his last name, and he is fantastic. And he talked a lot about what some of the stuff you just talked about, really going into how important it is to break down that speech machine and spend a lot of time making sure the kiddo or adult is really well versed in how the speech mechanism works. And that was sort of a revelation to me clinically, because I sort of up until that point had stuttering therapy in my head as like, okay, we're going to learn easy onset, and that was sort of the end of my toolkit, which, as you can imagine, was not particularly effective. But yeah, that was a big moment for me. And really, when I was listening to you, I was really struck by how different this is really than any other kind of therapy that we do, because it requires that we sort of do this self-awareness and really make the client their own clinician almost. I mean, we have to sort of turn them into a little speech path so they can understand it and really I guess just wrap their heads around what's going on. And we don't really do that with any other disorder.
Not usually, no. I mean, I was absolutely struck by that as well, as how detailed they went into each of the sounds. Like, I really felt like I was with Christina Gildersleeve Newman again, learning about articulation when they were saying, this is what we want you to do with the students. And I know some young kids and people with cognitive difficulties, this might be very difficult, but you can give some basics. And the kids that are definitely more cognitively aware and older, you can go into a lot of detail, but you may not be able to do that with every student. So I just wanted to talk a little bit to that as well and say, well, yeah, you're right. If people have hesitations, this may not work exactly for every student, but for the little ones, you can do. I've heard people using different materials for
Yeah.
making the speech machine and making it kind of interesting. So you're right, you're not going to be able to like draw it out and talk about it in an intellectual way, maybe, but you can like make it fun and use materials and build it with weird things that you have and help them understand, like, what do your lungs do? Like, why do we have to breathe? Those kinds of things. I think it's really important.
It really, really is. And there, like, you bring up a really great point about using different materials, because that was another thing that I didn't really get at first when I, with my first stuttering kiddos, like this, I mean, you can still be Susie Speech Path and do this. You get out your art supplies. If some speech paths trend arty and some trend techie and whatever, but use what you're comfortable with as therapy materials and really get after it. And also what the kids are into, because when I was listening to you, I thought, oh my gosh, like if you had, let's say, a middle schooler who was super techie, like you could take their chart and you could put it into a spreadsheet, make graphs, and really look at where they're stressed out and how they're feeling. I mean, you could really have a lot of fun with that.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing. This can be as easy or as complicated and like as colorful or as boring as you want. It really, whatever you feel like the student like is drawn towards or you are drawn towards, I think you can really make it your own.
Yeah, right. And also, another thing on the same sort of tip is that idea of not writing your goal to be fluency related. Like, oftentimes we write a goal that says something. Don't box yourself in with that goal that says something like, "We'll be 98% fluent in all settings."
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. And that's really not what we're going for. I really want to talk about, I think this is really important. People can still stutter and feel good about themselves and be a success.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most interesting stories was that Susan Hamilton told. She's a private speech pathologist up in Seattle area, and she had a client named Bob Love who used to work in the NBA. Anyway,
yes.
he had a severe stutter, and he eventually became quite fluent. And he does a lot of, now that he's so fluent, he does a lot of speaking engagements and that kind of thing. Anyway, one of his latest ones, Susan noticed, gosh, you're not as fluent as you used to be. Do you want to come in for like a little brush up? And he was like, no, like I feel really good about my stutter. I feel great with where I'm at. I really don't feel like I need to come in. And that really was like, wow, that was very empowering. He still had some stuttering issues, but to him, he still felt like a success and it didn't matter. And I thought we really want to empower the students in that way. And I thought that was really interesting to hear.
Yeah, I think that is a wonderful story. And that relates to my own experience. My brother stutters, and sort of the reason that I'm a speech pathologist. And over the years, I've, of course, seen it come and go. And it's when he finally achieved, I think, true success in his therapy was when he got to that point where he wasn't scared of it anymore. And that was like huge for him. And he'd been in therapy for a very long time, since a small child, off and on. But it wasn't until he was an adult and with a really, of course, very talented SLP whose whole focus was fluency. And she really turned that around for him. So yeah, getting away from that point or that place where you're so hooked up into your percent syllable stuttered, and that I think the hardest thing is selling that to, it's not a hard sell for the kid usually, but it is a hard sell for parents and teachers. to say, look, we're going to be okay with this. Like, this is not, we're not going to go for 100% fluent speech here. We're going to go for him feeling confident about speaking up in class.
That's exactly right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But that's tough.
It is really tough.
That's a tough one for people to swallow.
But, when a stutter is lifelong, there's, kids who, they grow out of it or develop out of it. And then there's kids that don't. And I think, over time they realize like this really is the own child or student's journey. Like,
right.
In a way, it's like this really, it does have to do with the parents and teachers, but really they're in this alone in many ways. Like they have this stutter that they either will grow to love or fight against or whatever they're going to do. But I mean, hopefully we can help them have a feeling of acceptance, at the end of the day.
Right. So it doesn't panic them when they're away at college and they're stressed out and all of a sudden it comes back,
Yeah.
Because I think that happens and then it's feelings of failure and whatever. So I love it. Love it.
Yeah.
One question. So, our friend Heidi posted that she had a question about where would you start with a student with ASD who stutters and has no self-awareness?
Sure. Well, I mean, an ASD, as we all know, is so huge. So I would think about like, well, what level of, autism do they have? I actually have worked with a student with autism who stutters before, but they were pretty high functioning.
Right. Right.
And so, but this particular student that I worked with was pretty analytical. And so I used a lot of video with him so that he could really see. So he was very like rule based, like, okay, first we went over what kind of stutters there are. So we went over blocks, we went over sound repeats, word repeats, phrase repeats, interjections, all this kind of stuff, secondary stuttering characteristics. So we defined them very clearly. And then we did the videoing. Okay, it's like, well, let's go ahead and see where we are at. And then also I gave tokens. So every time he identified a stutter that he did, I would give him a token, and he really became a little not obsessed, but he really enjoyed getting a token and being right,
Oh yeah, I'm sure that is a great idea because that just taps into sort of what you would naturally do with a kiddo on the spectrum anyway.
Yeah. So I would suggest those things and see how effective that is. And if it's not, we can problem solve some more, but I would start there.
Right. That's a great idea. We'll let Heidi know. And can folks email you anytime?
Sure. I may not have all of the answers. Like I
come on.
Also we'll always be learning about stuttering. No matter how much I learn, I need to know more. So I'll do my best to give some ideas, but I'm always happy to do so. And
so that's Sara, SARA ECKER at thehellfoundation.com.
That's correct.
That's correct. And so you can email Sara with all of your pressing stuttering questions. Well, thank you for doing this, Sara.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Yeah, and I hope maybe you'll come back and talk to us again sometime.
Okay, sounds good.
I would really like to learn more, go into a little more depth on the techniques.
Sure.
That would be really fun. Or, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, any of it would be fun to learn about more.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much.
Yay. Thanks, Sara. Bye.
Okay, bye.